Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated legacy action. Today we are playing a bit of Oops All Spells. This is a deck I like to jam every now and then when I've got a smaller window to record a video in because it's quite a quick paced deck. So don't expect the longest video today. Alright, so what is our deck trying to do here? We are trying to put in a Balustrade Spy or an Undercity Informer into play. And then using this, we target ourselves, and because we have no lands in our deck, our entire library goes into the graveyard. These 4 Narcomoebas pop out, then we dread return back our Thassa's Oracle. So once again, combo decks in Legacy, quite a lot of them hinge around Thassa's Oracle, because cards that say you win the game on them, pretty good as it turns out. So in order to do this, what we need is a whole bunch of mana. And because we don't have lands, we have to use these cards, which are not lands, but they are effectively lands for what we want. Because they're a spell on the front, but only a land on the back, so we can play them as untapped lands for a little bit of life. So we then have things like Chrome Mox and Lotus Petal, Elvish Spirit Guide and Simian Spirit Guide. So these are our sort of starting mana elements here. And then once we've got these into play and we're sort of going up our mana chain, we can then go into things like Dark Ritual and Cabal Ritual to make sure that we hit the 4 mana required for this. Summoner's Pact, I put in the mana pile because most of the time this is just getting you a Elvish Spirit Guide. Sometimes it will get you a Wild Cantor, which you can then turn into the right color mana. So this doesn't net you mana, but what it does is it can turn green or red mana into the black mana you need for things like Dark Ritual and Cabal Ritual. So that's pretty much it. We've got a whole bunch of disruption that we get in this deck, which is why I like it. It's a turn 1 combo deck, but we also have the ability to protect ourselves. So we've got 4 Thoughtseize, we have the 4 Pact of Negation, and we have a couple of Cabal Therapies. The Cabal Therapies also double up to get cards out of our hand. For example, we mill our whole deck, but the Thassa's Oracle is in our hand or whatever, then we can chuck it into our bin by sacrificing one of our Narcomoebas with a Cabal Therapy. We can also use this to see what our opponent's playing and sort of check their hand a little bit just before we combo off and make sure that we can actually resolve our win condition. Then we've got these other 2 slots here, which are for navigating our combo in a different fashion. So what we can do sometimes is just reanimate one of our Undercity Informer, Balustrade Spy type cards. So we just go, okay, let's have this and get it. So if they counterspell the first one, we can just for 1 black mana get it back if we have this in hand. As well as this teams up with our Memory's Journey plan. So if we mill our whole library and something goes wrong, like our opponent has a Fairy Macabre or something like that, then we can use the Memory's Journey to shuffle in our bits and pieces that we need. So we can have a couple of Lotus Petals and a Thassa's Oracle if we have to win that way, or we can put the, like if our opponent gets rid of our Dread Return, for example, we can put the Reanimate back into our deck. Or we can use this to counterspell a Surgical Extraction on a Narcomoeba because we get rid of the one that they're targeting, so the others still manage to come into play. So there's a lot of options that Memory's Journey gives you. And we are a 61 card deck, but we get to utilize that 1 slot, which is rarely going to make a difference in our opening hand, but just having the tool in our deck is really big. That's pretty much it for the main deck. It's a case of going hard and getting people dead. Sideboard wise, we've got an interesting selection of tools. So Force of Vigor, things like Leyline of the Void, not really our friend, so we need to make sure we can kill those. Same with various sort of prison pieces, whether they be Trinispheres or Chalices on awkward numbers or whatever. Or Grafdigger's Cage can also be a Vishnu too. So all these things help blow these up. We also have a Foundation Breaker, which we can go find. This is also just a good one to board in when you don't know the matchup, because you can always fetch it with the Summoner's Pact. And this can blow up a problem permanent if you don't know what you're playing against because your opponent's scooped on turn 1 after you've comboed. Then we have 3 Xantid Swarm for when we're trying to get through a wall of counterspells. Alternatively, this can be used to stop surgical extractions as well. Our opponent can't surgically extract in response once we've got the Xantid Swarm attacking, so that's quite handy. Leyline of Sanctity, this will shut off things like Endurance. It will also shut off our opponent discarding our hand and ruining us that way, and there's decks like Reanimate that can hit you with multiple discard in a single turn. And Leyline of the Void, this can be useful against Reanimator, but it's mainly there for, well, it obviously is there for Reanimator, but it's also there for things like the Riddler or the Epic Storm. Now obviously the Epic Storm doesn't use its graveyard that much, but some of the ways that it can kill you on turn 1 tend to be through Echo of Eons. So using Leyline of the Void to shut off Echo of Eons in these turn 1 combo decks that can race us is quite handy. Also, like some of the Child Archer decks that are kicking around, they tend to use Echo to reload. And there's also that new deck that's got a whole bunch of wheel effects, including Wheel of Misfortune. This can slow down their Echo lines, as well as the Dragon that does a similar thing to Echo out of the graveyard. So yeah, that's our sideboard. This deck is deceptively difficult to play when you get to sideboard games because you have to make a lot of really key decisions in how you're manipulating what your deck looks like and the deck you're presenting, and also how you want to navigate some turns. What hate are you going to play around? How much can you play around something before it costs you your game? Do you just have to jam into it and hope they don't have it? Sometimes that's the case. So we're going to see if we can navigate it. I've played this deck a few times. I think I've gone 3-2 and 4-1 and stuff. I've never managed to get a trophy with this yet, but I think I've played it maybe 3 or 4 times. So let's see how we can do today. Before we jump into it, why not like and subscribe if you haven't? And after you finish watching the video, why not leave me a comment? And how about checking out my Patreon link below? I've got some good stuff on there. I have a tier that's got access to articles that I write about Dark Depths style decks. There's an article on there now, and there's going to be another article uploaded soon. One on Rainbow Depths, and the next one I'm doing is on Black-Green Slow Depths, and I've also got a big primer for Black-Green Turbo Depths. Okay, plug over and done with. Let's play some Legacy. Alright, this is our opening hand. We're on the draw. We've got some cards we don't really want in our opening hand, and we can't make our guy either, so it seems a pretty cut and dry mulligan to me. What do we have here? We don't have the guy we need, so that's probably going to be a mulligan again. This has the guy. We need a black source of mana here, which might prove a little challenging to find with what we've got. We are on the draw, so we would throw back 2 of these. So we get rid of our bridge and possibly the Thoughtseize here. And then we'd be looking to draw a black source of mana. Any black source of mana gives us the win, because this is 1 mana, 2 mana, 3 mana for the black source, 4 mana for the Cabal Ritual, and we go. So just needing to draw 1 black source of mana is probably good enough, especially on the draw. So we'll do this. We'll get rid of the bridge from below, and we'll get rid of the Thoughtseize because we don't have the black mana for this now. So if we get hit by something like a Thoughtseize, we can die pretty quickly. Oh, okay. Blue to Delta. Okay. I think we're supposed to lead out with the Turntimber Symbiosis tapped. We found our black source because we don't want, if our black source gets wastelanded, that's a lot worse than if our green source gets wastelanded. So we have the win next turn, provided we don't get our hand messed up and they have only 1 piece of interaction on our turn. So there's a few ifs and buts here. Brainstorm. This is a bit of a giveaway of what we're on, but there are some other decks that run Turntimber Symbiosis. Okay, so we've had a couple of cantrips this turn. They shuffled off of the Ponder. All right. I wouldn't mind finding another Pact of Negation or something here, just to tie the room together. Okay, so we don't need to use the Summoner's Pact for mana this turn. Right, so we'll play this, pay 3 life. I think we do Summoner's Pact so we can play around a Daze. It's unlikely that our opponent's got Daze, judging by the start they had, but it's free for us to do, and we're kind of all in here anyway. So let's do this. We'll go and get ourselves an Elvish Spirit Guide. We will cast this Cabal Ritual. We will exile the Spirit Guide. Play this little Undercity Informer. We will target ourselves. We will put some Narcomoebas into play. Now, our opponent might scoop here if they don't have anything. They're probably just looking at the exact configuration of our deck. Alright, our opponent's scooped there. So our opponent is some sort of Esper deck. This could be Breakfast, or it could be some sort of control deck. It's hard to say. So we're going to want these Xantid Swarms in. 1, 2, 3. Sorry, let's do it actually in our thing, shall we? So we're going to want these Xantid Swarms in. 3 Xantid Swarms. I think we're probably removing our Cabal Rituals to make way for these. And that's probably calling it a day there. There's definitely some options for things like Foundation Breaker potentially to come in here over a Chrome Mox, because we're not entirely sure what our opponent's doing. This is the part of this deck that I really dislike, is sometimes you're going in a little bit blind, but Esper is either going to be a Breakfast deck, a Doomsday deck, or some sort of control deck. So this is our opening hand. So what do we have here? 1 mana, 2 mana, 3 mana. So we're looking for 1 more mana, and we have redundancy with the Informer. We do have a Narcomoeba in hand, which can sometimes be a bit annoying. This hand is a little bit slow. We're looking for 1 more mana to go off on turn 2, though, which I think is probably fine given our opponent didn't do anything really in the first 2 turns. So we'll keep this. We don't have a Xantid Swarm, but we have 2 of our Balustrade Spy type things to push through. Right, no Leyline to start with from our opponent, a Tundra, and no play. So probably holding over something like a Flusterstorm here, I would imagine. A Summoner's Pact. as a risky source of mana that I prefer not to use, unless I know we're definitely winning. So we'll play this one tapped and carry on with our lives. So we can use the Memory's Journey to try and beat a Surgical Extraction. But if we summon as Pact, then that's going to be very difficult unless they're trying to extract our Narcomoebas. And this is also going to cost us 2 mana from our hand, which is not ideal. Right, a Scalding Tarn being cracked. Tundra into Ponder. Yep, so they're just trying to sculpt to get as much interaction as they can get here. Which makes sense. A Lotus Petal. So we can go now. How much are we worried about what our opponent's got here? Let's play out a Lotus Petal. If they've only got a Force of Negation, they're kind of sometimes priced into doing this now to counter it. So we can play the Undercity Informer here. I'm just debating whether or not I want this Lotus Petal in play or not. Because this does get exposed to things like Prismatic Ending if we put it into play, which isn't ideal for us. So I think we do play out the Petal here. That way we can at least crack our guy immediately if we feel the need to. I'm expecting this to get counterspelled. That's what I'm playing this for, as a duress. I don't really want to try and go off if they don't counter this. Alright. A Narcomoeba. So they are on breakfast, so I read that relatively well. So our opponent can kill us this turn. If they can go Cephalid Illusionist plus the Nomads, then they can just get us. Alright, so we're not dead this turn. We can summon as Pact this turn if we feel the need that we have to go. So we do have access to the 4 mana required. And Urza's Saga. So this can find Graveyard Hate as well. Or it can find the other part of their combo, depending on what they've got in hand. This is going to be an Orange Chant to stop us from comboing for a turn. Sure. A Dark Ritual. Alright. Well, we can't cast any spells, so we have to pass the turn. Does our opponent have the win next turn, or are they just using that as a time walk to buy themselves a turn? We might be able to catch them out with a Memory's Journey if they combo this turn. It will cost us our Lotus Petal, but we don't need that to win the game on our turn. Nomads in court, sure. Here's the Illusionist, sure. Our opponent's only got 2 cards in hand. So if they mill their library here, we might be able to get them with the Memory's Journey a little bit. If they, like, put the Dread Return on the stack, we can get rid of it. We need the cards to come in the right order before they get to Cabal Therapy us. That's basically what we're trying to avoid here. So there's a Dread Return. So we can snap the Dread Return off. We're getting to see the whole deck. So 4 Force of Will's already gone. Haven't seen a Daze here. So they might not have any Dazes in. Okay, they have a Surgical. We might be winning because we have this Memory's Journey in our hand. We're going to let our opponent mill out their library, because that's going to give us a alternative win condition where we don't actually have to combat. So they might stop here and try and Cabal Therapy, but they haven't really hit much of the way of Narcomoebas. Alright, there's one of them, that's fine. So, they got the Oracle in there yet? No, just the Dread Return. Sure. There's the Oracle. We don't really want to shuffle the Oracle in if we can avoid it. So our opponent's done a whole bunch of stuff here. If we put the Dread Return... Yeah, this is a little bit tough for us. If we put the Dread Return into their library, they can just mill it. So we have to let them cast the Dread Return. So the last card in their library is a Narcomoeba. No, it wasn't a Narcomoeba. So they only have the 3 creatures here. Okay. So what we're going to do is buy ourselves another turn here. This is targeting the Oracle. So we're going to go cast this, targeting... So target them, we're going to target their Thassa's Oracle, and we're going to put some just useless lands into their library, just so that they've got less chance of drawing the Thassa's Oracle here. Let's tap this for blue, tap this for black, and then we can also flash back the Memory's Journey if we need to. So this doesn't have any targets. They can cast the Thassa's Oracle from their hand once they draw it, which is why we put more cards in. Thoughtseize. So we need our Dark Ritual Resolve. How many Force of Negations are in here? 1 Force of Negation, 2 Force of Negation. Do I think they have more than 2 Force of Negation here? We need this Dark Ritual Resolve either way, so I guess we're just going for it with this. We could always Thoughtseize, but okay. So now we can Thoughtseize our opponent just to see what they've got, and then we can use our Summoner's Pact to get the other mana we need. Orange Chant and Narcomoeba. Sure, we'll just take the Orange Chant here. We'll cast this Summoner's Pact. We'll go and get ourselves a Spirit Guide. Exile this Spirit Guide. Cast this Balustrade Spy. Target ourselves. Use this Narcomoeba. And one of Memory's Journey came in pretty clutch there. That's not necessarily what it's for, but it won us a game, so I'll take it. We are 1-0 versus Breakfast. First I thought it was the full-on Esper Breakfast, but it looks like it just had the one Underground Sea in it, so the list looked very similar to the one that Bosch and Roll won the 10k with, which is what I would expect from most Breakfast decks at the moment. Alright, let's go to the next round. Right, this is our opening hand for game 2. We got some cards we don't want in our hand in the form of Memory's Journey and Narcomoeba. Cabal Therapy not great either. We don't have one of our guys, so this is an easy mulligan. Right, so this is 1 mana, 2 mana, 3 mana, 4 mana, 5 mana to go and get the guy that gives us black. So this is a turn 1 win. Obviously we can use the Dark Ritual instead. This is a keep. We'll probably get rid of one of our spirit guides that we have 2 of for the purposes of dodging something like a Cabal Therapy randomly. So we can kill on turn 1. So we hope our opponent just plays like an Elvish Reclaimer or something. What do we got here? And Once Upon a Time. This could be like Newton Elves, or it could be the initiative decks with green in. Dryad Arbor. Okay. What is this going to be? Just the Dryad Arbor. Alright. Oh. A Green Sun Zenith. They're getting a second Dryad Arbor. Alright. That's pretty good for us. We should be able to win the game now. Cabal Ritual as well. Okay, let's play this. Pay 3 life. Get this Summoner's Pact going. We get Wild Cantor here. So we will cast this Wild Cantor using our Spirit Guide mana. We will make black mana. Cast this Dark Ritual. We'll cast this Cabal Ritual. And we'll cast this Balustrade Spy, leaving up mana for Memory's Journey here. I assume they'll let us mill over our whole deck. They could have an Endurance here, which would be annoying, because that would lose us the game, because of the Summoner's Pact trigger. Right, so we will Cabal Therapy our opponent, see what they're working with. It just gives us more information about what our opponent's deck's doing. If they have Endurance, we can't really beat that right now. But we're protecting a turn 1 win. Alright, so there's the Endurance. So we get to see more of our opponent's deck. We can't pay for our Summoner's Pact because it's 4 mana and we only have 2 available. Sure. I want to see what's in their hand, and then we'll pass the turn, I guess. Serra's Paragon is an interesting one. So we're just dead on our next turn because of the Summoner's Pact trigger. We beat ourselves, but, well, the Endurance got us. So what is our opponent playing? Some sort of junk mid-range deck. Pact of Negation, Cabal Ritual, and Chrome Mox aren't best served here. We want Leyline of Sanctity to protect us from Endurance and pieces that get us. And we'll get these other hate pieces in case we have any permanents. Obviously, the Pact of Negation can stop an Endurance, but Leyline covers that and more. So I think this is what we're looking at here. Losing game 1, pretty rough on us, really. This doesn't have the thing we need, so I think we need to mulligan this one. Only 1 mana and loads of cards in our hand that we don't want. The Memory's Journey, the Dread Return, and a Narcomoeba. This is another straight up mulligan. Got one of these. We got 1, 2. We've got a little bit of mana. Most of our deck is mana. I think we can probably keep this. We're just looking to draw 2 mana, 1 of it black. So would I like 2 Leyline of Sanctity in play, or 1 Leyline of Sanctity in play and have a Cabal Therapy in hand? That is an interesting choice. Definitely getting rid of this Memory's Journey. It's between the Cabal Therapy and one of the Leylines that goes here. I think, considering we don't really have the black mana, I think having 2 Leylines is actually going to be potentially useful. If they've got something like a Beseiju, they can't get rid of it all. Alright. Do we think they have a Wasteland? Probably. It feels like the sort of deck that can have Wasteland, especially it's Serra Paragon, which incentivizes stuff that you can play from the graveyard for good value. So I think we're not going to play our land out into a Wasteland. If we find a Crypt of Agadeem type thing, whatever it's called, then we will play that after the Turntimber. But we don't need to play a Turntimber. Most of our mana obviously isn't a land, so we don't really care about having the land drop. Right, Birds of Paradise. A Balustrade Spy. Right. Just looking for some black mana. We don't really want to play out the Undercity Informer until we have the mana to activate it. But our opponent isn't putting us under a massive amount of threat immediately anyway. Cradle, okay. Maybe they will be quite soon. They could be natural ordering us next turn, which is a lot to deal with. And Endurance, sure. So they're just getting a threat into play. If this is what they're doing, that doesn't bother me too much. Obviously, they can still natural order next turn, but this just gives them more mana each turn cycle. Thassa's Oracle. That's a bit of a whiff, isn't it? This is hexproof, by the way, so we can still hit ourselves with one of our Cabal Therapies, but we are struggling in this game. This looks like a natural order. There's a Crater Hoof. Oh, they're just casting a Leyline of the Void. Okay, we do have a Foundation Breaker in our deck. We do have a Thassa's Oracle as well. So if we can find enough Lotus Petals, we might be okay to just mill ourselves and then cast the Thassa's Oracle. But our opponent is winning this game by a considerable margin right now. With our deck, every turn that goes by that we aren't winning, it gets worse for us because our opponent gets to actually play a real game, and that's one of the strengths of our deck is our opponent doesn't get to set up and do anything before we win usually. An Undercity Informer. Right. So we're taking 4 this turn unless they have... I guess they can make us take 8 this turn. They should be able to pump their Shepherd with Cradle, a Birds, and a Savannah. We can take 8 this turn and 8 the next turn. So they just need to find 1 additional damage to kill us. So they might be playing a threat this turn. Sure, this shuts off our Summoner's Pact. And what are they doing with this? Another Endurance, sure. The hand was pretty good. We did have the thing that got round the thing that they had. But we are getting hit by multiple pieces of hate. And our hand doesn't come together either. So we are dead on our next turn. Because they can pump that to 5. So that's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So they have exactly lethal next turn. So this has got to be a pretty good draw. A Dark Ritual. Is that draw good enough to do anything here? We can mill ourselves, or we can present... No, we can't even mill ourselves, right? We don't have any black mana to start the chain. Yeah, we're just dead here. That is the fail rate of our deck. So, yeah, it happens sometimes. Let's go to round 3. We are on the play for round 3. Our opening hand doesn't have the guy we need, and it has some pretty awkward stuff in our hand. So let's mulligan this. Right. 3, 4, Balustrade Spy. We have a turn 1 Force of Will check. We don't really have the luxury of trying to Thoughtseize our opponent first here, though. To keep this, we'll throw back a Narcomoeba. Lotus Petal. We could try and draw into another mana source. I think we want to just Dark Ritual and try and go for it here. 4. Let's got Force of Will over their opponent. Because the downside of passing here is... Oh, okay, another breakfast matchup. The downside of passing here is if our opponent is a Thoughtseize deck or something and they just take out our Balustrade Spy, then we went from having a way of winning the game to not having a way of winning the game and just being on the mercy in the top of our deck. If, let's say, that Lotus Petal was an Crypt of Agadeem type thing, then I would have Thoughtseized first. I think we are kind of priced into going for it there. Alright. Thoughtseize. So our opponent might just kill us this turn, so it wouldn't have mattered which way we did. It wasn't going to be able to beat our opponent necessarily. I guess we could have Thoughtseized to keep them at bay for a turn. But that's not really a great way of trying to win the game with this deck. Mystery Rainforest. So we're not dead this turn unless they're doing it second main after just getting a 1 point damage first. But given the deck we're playing, I think if they had it, they'd just have slammed it in the first main phase. Save themselves the time. Another Nomads. Sure. So they don't have the combo yet. An Elvish Spirit Guide. Not really the one. We need Black Source plus Reanimate is our quickest way to win in this game. So if we were waiting for a Black Source, it wouldn't have materialized. And would have just given our opponent time to sculpt their hand in a way that we couldn't beat. So I'm pretty happy that we went for it turn 1. Obviously not pleased with the outcome. But sometimes you've got to ask if they have it. And that's the best thing you can do. Our opponent does not play Wasteland Effects. So we'll be putting our Turntimber Symbiosis into play here. We don't have access to blue mana, so there's no point leaving this untapped for a potential Memory's Journey to beat their combo. If we had a Lotus Petal, then I would play it and hold open the Memory's Journey. As our opponent got coming in here. A Brazen Borrower. Sure, this is just a way of beating us down and trying to get the game over and done with. They don't want to risk us being able to draw into our combo, so they might as well try and get us dead as quickly as humanly possible. So if they can find another threat, they can probably kill us in 3 turns. At the moment, this is 4. Cabal Therapy. What would you like to name, opponent? They're probably going to name, like, one of our Balustrade Spy. They'll probably name the other one because we've already had this, so Undercity Informer would be my guess. But they've got some expendable creatures here, so they can throw them away if they want to. And take our Elvish Spirit Guide. Sure, Narcomoeba. So this is 6. This is a 2-turn clock. Okay. We are close-ish. But I don't think close is going to be good enough here. So the thing with this deck is the ceiling on it is quite high. You can have a turn 1 combo with protection. But the floor is pretty bad. You can just lose to a single piece of interaction from your opponent sometimes. Now they have to have that piece of interaction, sometimes you'll get through it. If they have another creature in their hand, they will probably cast a Cabal Therapy this turn. Nope, got nothing here, we're just dead. Okay, so we're on breakfast, which is we want swarms in and rituals out. And that's what we're doing. There's no point trying to do the Leyline of Void. If it gets to the point where our opponent can do their combo, we've probably already lost. So I think the rituals for swarms is about where we want to be. Turn 1 swarm, turn 2 combo. 1. So this is 3, 4, 5. So we have Thoughtseize back up here. So I think we'll keep. Now our opponent, whether or not they have boarded in prismatics in case we leave out any of our mana, I'm not convinced they would have done that. So we can go for a turn 1 Thoughtseize and try and combo them turn 2. Or we can go for a turn 1 Dark Ritual to then Thoughtseize and combo them off. Which I think is what we're going to go for. So we'll play out our Chrome Mox. We'll imprint our bridge from below. This will be a heads up counter spell. But it's not the end of the world for us. We only need 1 more mana to go again anyway. Right, so let's Thoughtseize our opponent. This is one of those protection turn 1 combo hands that looks amazing. Obviously, our opponent could have multiple pieces of interaction, so we can't win. But we'll see. Brainstorm Force of Will to Ferry. Okay, so we take the Force of Will, and then we exile this, cast this. This is one of the hands that makes our deck look bananas, right? So we get all our Narcomoebas into play, and then we will... Where's our Dread Return? Target Thassa's Oracle. We know our opponent's got in hand, so it doesn't really matter if we need to... We don't need to do any Cabal Therapy nonsense. We can just win the game there. Alright, so that went pretty well. They just wanted to see what was in our graveyard so they could work out how we sideboarded. So yeah, let's just resubmit. Go again. So if you get hands like that every game, you're just going to win a league pretty much. Like turn 1 combo with protection, you're like 90% favoured minimum in a lot of matchups. However, sometimes you're not on the play, and sometimes you don't have the protection. But you pretty much are always able to make your combo. So your opponent always has to have something. Unless you've mulliganed properly to Oblivion, which you know, can happen. That can happen with any deck. So this deck is quite reliable at doing the one thing it does, of the Informer Balustrade Spy. It's just whether or not it can beat your opponent's interaction. We don't have any initial mana. We have a Thassa's Oracle in hand that's a little bit awkward too. I think we're going to mulligan. Double Narcomoeba, not where we want to be. 1 mana, 2 mana. So we have Disruption into Disruption. And we just need some mana. I think this is actually keepable. It's a little bit slow, but we can answer our opponent's things quite effectively. There's a Saga. That can represent a problem in the near future. Elvish Spirit Guide. So we're only 1 mana away from comboing now. So I think we will play our Turntimber tapped. Our opponent can't daze us right now. So this is going to have to pitch our Cabal Therapy here. So we can cast this Thoughtseize. We might have to make a choice about what we expect to come out of the Saga, if we expect Graveyard Hate or not. That is a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff. I don't have any more mana though. I think we take the Surgical here. Right, so our opponent's hand is full of interaction. If they find a blue mana source, then I think we're in a bit of trouble. So we got 3 Xantid Swarms that would be good to draw. We have 3 Thoughtseize and a Cabal Therapy. So we can go now, but we know we'd be going into a Force of Will, so there's no point just kamikazing our way into it. We should probably just pass a turn, try and find a way to play around what we've seen. But if our opponent gets their hands on a blue mana source, then we're in trouble. I don't think they have a blue mana source they can get off of their Saga. They're not playing things like Petals or Mox Opals or anything. Not that they could turn on the Mox Opal anyway. But Breakfast tends to just be getting Shuko and maybe something like a Soulguide landing out the sideboard. Or a Retrofitter's Foundry for the grinding matchup, but that's presumably not in our opponent's deck here. Okay, just a Shuko. They have no Graveyard Hate. That's something. Did they find a blue source? A colourless source will let them cycle the step through. Flusterstorm is something we can beat, as long as we don't... Well, we don't have to use our mana to cast anything like a Dark Ritual. It can be Flusterstorm, so we can cast our guy. And we can Cabal Therapy this away before we need to worry about it. Right, I didn't find a land, so we're still in it. Bridge from below. That's a swing and a miss, I'm afraid. If we'd have had this earlier in the Cabal Therapy now, that would have been much better for us. Right, we're playing the who can top deck better here. They find a single island, and I think they are massively favoured. What are you going to discard here? A Ponder. Interesting. A Xantid Swarm. Here we go. I think they have to Force of Will this one. And at least hold up the pretense that they have another Force of Will. What are they pitching? Force of Will pitching a Ponder. Okay, so we know 3 of our opponents' 5 cards. But we know they're not lands. I think they don't have an Illusionist because they would have cast a Step Through if they did. So we got here an Agadeem's Awakening. And we'll use this. We'll go for one of these. We can Memory's Journey around a Surgical Extraction here. We got you? Okay, so they had another Force. But if we draw another guy, we can go again. So this Force is pitching the Flusterstorm. Sure. So we've got 7 guys that we can draw here, or Reanimate. So we have 8 live draws that immediately win us the game. And our opponent needs 2 mana before they can think about winning the game. A Chrome Mox. Alright. Yeah. I'm going to play this guy and beat down. It's not how we drew it up, but it's where we are. Because we've got the mana here from the Chrome Mox. We may as well threaten our opponent's life total since there's nothing going on over there. Alright. Let's go to attacks. Bash. I think we'll play this tapped. Just gives us more mana to work around with for casting things like Memory's Journey later on. Getting beaten down by the Oops All Spells deck is a miserable experience. It's happened to me before. And it just feels the worst. We can nearly cast a Turntimber Symbiosis here. That would be an interesting one. I'm not going to pay out the Petal just in case our opponent's got a Prismatic. They're probably going to go for our Chrome Mox if we do have if they have White Source into Prismatic. But alright, our opponent's on to cleanup stage. What are they going to get rid of? A Dread Return. Alright, that's something they didn't want in their hand anyway. I don't think we need to cast this now. We may as well wait until the turn we combo off. If we can find our combo, we can check the coast is clear before doing it. That seems like a solid plan. Right, it's our opponent's turn. I missed on a land again. No, they've got a land. Okay, that does change the dynamic slightly. This means we have to Thoughtseize now if they play this Nomads out. Because that means they might be able to kill us. Okay, they haven't played out the Nomads. Pact of Negation. Okay, so we are covered for our turn potentially, but our opponent has 7 cards in hand. That's so many cards. So if we can get them low enough as well, we can shut off their fetch land, which maybe cuts a turn off this game for our clock as well. We don't really want to cast this Pact of Negation because we cannot make blue for it yet. If we find a second Lotus Petal, we can hang both Lotus Petals out there and have Pact of Negation potentially on their turn. But they shouldn't be able to win on this turn. So if they play a land this turn, we have to Thoughtseize because they can have the 3 mana next turn to do both halves of their combo. Right, so Kraken is going to 9. This can be a white source for a chump blocking Nomads, perhaps. A Ponder. Okay, that's fine. Let's see where they put these cards. Are they going to be shuffled, or do they want one of them? I imagine they're just looking for land. They've got a whole bunch of spells in hand right now. They did not shuffle their library. Okay, so they found the land. So we have to Thoughtseize them this turn. Simian Spirit Guide, not the one. We can attack with it if we want to. So we can use our Lotus Petal to cast it. Which honestly I think we're probably going to do. Let's get a little bit of damage in here. Let's see what they're working with over there. Force of Negation, exiling a Narcomoeba. That's pretty annoying. Right, we're going to make our Spirit Guide here. Does our opponent have us dead next turn? To find the land here. The fact they didn't crack with their Floodstrand means they probably had a second land on top as well. Yeah, so there's a Tundra. They're just going to play their bits and win the game here. They might still need to step through because they didn't pitch the step through to the Force of Negation, which makes me think that they don't actually have the guy in hand right now. Yeah, okay. Memory's Journey. Are we really going to try and win another game with that? Maybe we are. So we're going to play this Chrome Mox. We're going to imprint our Pact of Negation. So we have Memory's Journey and Memory's Journey Flashback available now. So they're going to step through at end of turn for the Cephalid Illusionist. And they're going to go for the combo. Oh no, they're just going to brainstorm first. Oh, I guess they can brainstorm and then shuffle and still step through. Yeah, this is the best way of sculpting. We just need to buy ourselves one more turn, in theory. But I guess if they're doing their combo, they're going to have a whole bunch of guys coming into play, so it's going to be hard for us to beat down through that. Right, they're going to 2. There's going to be a step through now. No step through. Interesting. Flooded Strand. I have to be going for it now, I would assume. Sure. So there's the Nomads we know about. Cephalid Illusionist. Sure. Going for the Shuko equip. So the plan here is get them to sacrifice 3 guys to the Dread Return and hope that they can't beat our Memory's Journey. So they've already pitched a Narcomoeba, so they might only have 1 more Narcomoeba in their deck. So they'll only have 1 blocker on their turn, so we might just get it with the skin of our teeth on the beatdown plan. Sure. I don't think they can afford to Cabal Therapy here. Right. 12 more cards left in their library. The order at which their cards come out is actually pretty important. We want their last Narcomoeba to be in the bottom card of their library. 2 more activations to go. Alright, so the last Narcomoeba must be in the bottom card of their library. Unless they don't have another Narcomoeba and it's in hand. They do have 1 last Narcomoeba, sure. There's a Shuko. So now they're going to cast the Dread Return. They can Cabal Therapy us, which we can't really do anything about. But are they going to correctly name Memory's Journey? And if so, can they stop our flashback version of it? Dread Return. Okay, here we go. Target them. We would like to put Thassa's Oracle, Polluted Delta, and Floodstrand. Blue. If they counterspell this with a Force of Will, we can then buy it back again. Flusterstorm will counter this, but then we get to try it again. So I think we're in a relatively good spot. They only have 1 blocker as well, and they're on 2 life. Are we really going to win a second game with Memory's Journey targeting our opponent's things? It's not how we drew it up, but that's how we've won 2 of our rounds. What a ridiculous couple of games, or set of games we've had so far today. Okay, let's go to round 4. Let's see if we can Memory's Journey some more people, I guess. Alright, this is our opening hand. We do not have the ability to make a guy because we have no guy, so let's mulligan. We have a guy. We have 3 mana. We just need 1 black mana. We have 2 awkward cards in hand. I think we can do better. 1, 2. We're 2 mana shy with this hand. 2 mana is a lot of mana to be shy. We're completely cold to a bunch of stuff as well. Come on then. It's mulligan. Yikes. Nope. Okay, I think we've lost this one. Ooh, we're not a million miles away though. So I think we keep this. Get rid of Spirit Guide, Summoner's Pact, Bridge from Below, and Reanimate. And say done. We're only 1 card away. If we draw one of our guys, we can just go. It has gone a bit awkward. Maybe we should have kept that 2 mana source one. Considering how well this deck mulligans, didn't feel like that's what we wanted to be. If our opponent Thoughtseizes us, do we scoop? Okay, they're not going to Thoughtseize us, that's fine. So now we're going to have to beat a Daze potentially from our opponent. So we are massively behind. Elvish Spirit Guide. Sure. So the reason we're not playing this out is because Wasteland is a thing in the format, and we tend not to play multiple land drops anyway. So we can just hold this in hand. It's not going to affect our total mana. Obviously, if we draw a second tap land, we can play the first one. Our opponent will probably prioritise Wasteland in any land we play. But we didn't really want to give our opponent any idea what we're doing, because we might be losing this one. It does feel like Delver from the other side, though. A Ponder. It could be Show and Tell, though. Yeah, okay, we're in the Show and Tell ballpark, I would say. All right. I guess we are supposed to play this. Reasons being, if we play that ritual and they counter it, we can then play that ritual off the other one and still make our guy. Don't like showing our opponent what we've got, but all right, sneak attack. Emrakul doesn't really kill us because it just loses us one of our permanents. However, a Grizzlebrand is probably lights out. Atraxa. Let's see what you reveal, opponent. No more creatures. Okay. They have a Lotus Petal though, so if they have another creature in hand, they can go again. They also have a Force of Will we now have to beat. Oh. Oh, Big Emma, sure. We got clapped pretty hard there, but mostly by our deck, to be honest. Let's go to sideboard in. So we're doing pretty much the standard sideboard, and it's usually your Cabal Rituals and Chrome Mox that come out unless you're replacing Pact of Negation for something. So we want these things, Xantid Swarm because they're a counterspell deck, Foundation Breaker. They sometimes can have things like Grafdigger's Cage and stuff. Unlikely, but possible. Not entirely convinced we want the Breaker, but people who are better with this deck than me say that you want the Breaker for this, so I will listen to them. Sure, this has turn 1 twice, I guess. We beat a counterspell. Well, it depends what they point their counterspell at, right? Because if they counterspell our Balustrade Spy, we can then reanimate it. Opponent's mulligan to 5 cards. So this is probably a good sign for us. Lotus Petal. Cast that Ritual. Exile this. Exile this. Cast this. Leaving up green mana and black mana. No, we can only leave 1 mana up, can't we? Yeah. So we leave up the black mana for the reanimate here. This is going to get a Force of Will. Oh, it didn't get a Force of Will. Oh, that's a disaster. That means our opponent's got Surgical Extraction. We're just going to lose. We didn't know what mana we wanted to keep up either. So, if they get rid of the Narcomoebas here, though, then we get to win the game with a reanimate still. If that's what they've got. Feels like there must be a Surgical Extraction in our near future, though. They mulliganed to 5 and didn't interact with any of our spells along the way. Unless they just had a turn 1 and they thought maybe they could get a turn 1. Targeting the Thassa's Oracle. What do we get with our reanimate here? We can't get any guys that shuffle things. Oh, actually, that's not true. We are not dead here. We return the Wild Cantor to play, sacrifice it to Flashback Memory's Journey, put 4 cards into our graveyard, into our library, and then just try and beat down with our little guys here. That seems alright. I use the term alright a bit loosely there, but alright, let's get some Narcomoebas. Let's cast Reanimate targeting Wild Cantor here. So if we... I'm just trying to work out what the most damage we can put on the board here is. If we... No, I don't think we need to... I'm just trying to work out if we Cabal Therapy ourselves, we lose a guy. That's -1 damage. But when this dies, we automatically get more damage. So I think we do want to Cabal Therapy ourselves here. Then when we sacrifice this for green mana, we can get a 2/2 here. And we can cast Memory's Journey, targeting us, and we're going to shuffle in some stuff. Does it matter what we shuffle in here? Possibly. We get 3 remaining. So we get a guy, a thing that can cast a guy, and then... Does it really matter what the other card is? I don't think it does, unless we get another thing that can cast a guy. That probably makes sense, sure. And so if we sacrifice these 3 for a Dread Return, we can get back 2/2. Is there anything better? How big is that Foundation Breaker lad? What's the stats on this guy? A 2/2. So that's not really very exciting, is it? Undercity Informer, still a 2/3. Balustrade Spy. I think the best we can do here is get ourselves one of these guys. I guess we could get the Undercity Informer. I'll sacrifice these 3, turn them into 2/2s, get back our Undercity Informer, and pass a turn. So we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11, 12. So we have a 2-turn clock here. And we can Cabal Therapy our opponent next turn to stop them show and telling. Maybe we're supposed to have this turn, I don't know. Right, a brainstorm. Interesting games I'm having today. Alright, yeah. So we managed to beat the Surgical Extraction in an interesting fashion. Alright, now we are on the draw. I don't think that changed anything sideboard-wise, but it does mean that we are less able to combo as risk-free, because our opponent's going to have more ways of interacting, so they can just go blue source, go. And we have to worry about Spell Pierce, we have to worry about Daze, you have to worry about Flusterstorm, as well as the free counters. So, 1 mana, 2 mana, 3 mana, make a guy. That seems fine. Our opponent's gone to 5 cards. Maybe we're just going to make some guys. We don't have to immediately sack it. Our opponent is very unlikely to interact with our Informer once it's in play. So I'm more inclined to play it and then see where we land. Because I don't want to just burn our Summoner's Pact, because that gives our opponent a win condition. Right, Ponder, I assume. Yep, there's the Ponder. We're looking for a shuffle here, please, opponent. Help us out. They shuffled, okay. And a Lotus Petal. Right, over to us. I don't really like this Narcomoeba in our hand, but... Okay, so let's play this. And we will pay 3 life. We will cast Undercity Informer. We can activate it instant speed if we feel the need. Obviously, we will then die in our upkeep, but that's not really where I want to be. Oh wow, they're just scooping it. Wow, incredible. Yeah, I guess they just didn't have anything there. They decided to keep a 5 that had a cantrip on turn 1, which I think is a perfectly reasonable thing to do there. Your deck's got a lot of options. I don't think going to 4 is necessarily going to be better here, especially since our deck is trying to force our way through stuff like that. So yeah, we got another win. So we're 3-1 going into the final round, looking for the 4-1. Not actually won the game with Thassa's Oracle very much today, but there we are. Let's go to the final round. On the play for the final round, pretty good. Our hand doesn't have the lad in, so let's mulligan. We've got a lad. We've got some mana. We're 1 mana shy of doing the thing. Actually, no, we're not. We can Cabal Ritual, Cabal Therapy ourselves, then reanimate the Balustrade Spy. So this is a turn 1 on the play. Bit all in, but we didn't select this deck to not be all in, right? Play this, pay 3 life, exile this, go and get Elvish Spirit Guide, exile this, cast this. Right, our opponent is F6'd over there. Hit ourselves. We'll name Balustrade Spy. Oh, okay. Our opponent's scooping the game. We don't know what they're playing. Not helpful. So we have a choice. We can make some decisions about what our opponent might be playing. So they didn't interact with us at all on turn 1. Does that mean they're playing some sort of Pharaoh deck? Are we just supposed to resubmit? Are we supposed to board in 1 Foundation Breaker over a Cabal Ritual just as a hedge? I think that's probably fine. I think it's better to keep our deck running efficiently with like 1 answer in than try and dilute it for something we don't necessarily know. This is 2 mana. We have some interaction, but we have some cards I don't really want in our opening hand. I think I'm going to mulligan this one. This is an interesting one. I think we can keep this and throw the Dread Return back. Is our opponent going to start the game with a Leyline in play, I wonder? They're giving me that sort of vibe. It is not interesting. Are we going to get Thoughtseized? What is their interaction going to be? An Urza Saga. Okay. Maybe they were a blue deck, just didn't have any blue spells. Voltaic Key. Okay, with that sort of deck, are we? So this is like the Karn Echoes deck, probably with the new Lord of the Rings card in the ring. So we can go right now if we want to. Let's see what happens. Alright, they're F6'd here. Let's just jam this guy. Target ourselves. Get ourselves some Narcomoebas. We will Cabal Therapy our opponent. Okay, they're just scooping it up. Alright, so a very, very quick last one to finish, and we came away with a pretty tasty 4-1. Until the last round, I think we only won 3 of our 6 games from Thassa's Oracle. Like one of them, you know, they scooped to our Undercity Informer. They probably assumed we were going to go for it, and I'm going to count that as a Thassa's Oracle win. But we had 2 Memories Journey wins and a beatdown win. That is unusual, suffice to say. But I think we showcased some of the extra bits of how this deck operates quite nicely. So we had the thing where they surgically extracted our Thassa's Oracle, but we just pivoted into let's just make 12 power and see if you can beat that on turn 1, and they couldn't, so that's pretty tasty. So yeah, pretty exciting one. Let's have a talk about the deck. So I mentioned earlier that the ceiling of this deck is ridiculously high. It's a turn 1 combo deck that can sometimes have 1, possibly 2 pieces of protection on the turn it's going off. That is like the benchmark of like the best thing that you can do in the format, pretty much. Like I think the best hand of Oops is probably the strongest thing you can open in a game of Legacy. However, the floor for this deck is, you know, not great. We do have a fail rate built into our deck. Sometimes we will mulligan and we'll have to keep a hand where we need to draw into something in order to actually win the game. And we won't draw into it, and our deck will do literally nothing, because our deck does one thing, really. Now, yeah, you can sometimes beat people down, but normally what you're looking for is either your combo pieces or mana, and if you don't have the mana, then you're not going to be able to do the beatdown plan anyway, if you don't have enough mana sources. So the beatdown plan is really bad and rarely does anything, and many decks can check it with a single creature. I have lost to the beatdown plan though, and I have beaten people with the beatdown plan, so it does happen. So because we're trying to do one thing, we are susceptible to interaction. So if we don't have the protection, we are kind of at the mercy of what our opponent's got. Now we can make them have it on turn 1, which sometimes we just have to do, right? We can't wait until we draw permission in a lot of games. Like we can't say, okay, we're going to wait until we have this Pact of Negation in our hand, then we're going to go, or we'll Thoughtseize our opponent first. Because every turn that goes by, our opponent just gets better at beating what we're doing, because they're going to be, most of the decks, you know, their blue decks are going to be sculpting, or they're going to be doing their own game plan that beats us. So if you have a chance to go when your opponent doesn't have a land in play, you pretty much have to take it a lot of the time, because they could have a daze if you wait a turn. So then you're playing against daze and potentially Force of Will. Or, you know, they'll ponder into more answers, and things just get worse as the turns go on. So you do find yourselves in these situations where your deck has to win you the game this turn, and if your opponent has anything, then you're in trouble. But there are elements of wiggle room. So, you know, we showed the Memory's Journey plan there. Even though we had the Bridge from Below in hand, and we could still make a bunch of guys. So those lines only work if you don't have a Summoner's Pact involved. Because obviously Summoner's Pact, if you're using this to go off, you can just immediately lose the game if they can stop your combo. Whereas if you're not doing that, then maybe you can just make a load of zombies and get some guys into play and just win the game that way. And your opponent's probably not going to have a lot of removal in their deck, so making like 10 power is often going to be enough to win you the game. So again, it's the ceiling and floor. So even on the hands that go wrong and your opponent does have some interaction that can beat you, if you've got sort of the low floor of the Summoner's Pact hand, so you're just dead, then that's annoying. But if you don't, then you can make a load of power like we did in that one game and just win the game with it. So it's kind of, you are at the mercy of your deck a bit. This is not a deck I would take to a high level tournament, because you're not necessarily making the most amount of decisions. Now that's not saying that there isn't skill elements to this deck. There clearly is. You need to navigate stuff. You need to know your matchups as well. You need to be able to not just sideboard effectively, but know what sort of opening hands you need to keep. Sometimes you might be keeping something that's a lower power hand that's maybe not going off as early because it's got some other stuff in, or when you need to fish for it. You need to know your percentages a little bit of how useful each opening hand is, what your percentages are to draw the bits and pieces, and whether or not you can keep it. And playing around some of the hate pieces, because like we showed in this league, you can play around certain hate pieces in certain ways. So it's not like it's a deck that has no play skill to it at all. However, if you get the really good hands, then, you know, the play skill you're required to win with this is very low, because you can just have the nuts hand and your opponent can't do anything with it. But those aren't that often with the games that you have. Also, in the game where we did play around our opponent's thing with the Memory's Journey, we had a black mana floating. If our opponent had surgically extracted the Narcomoebas, then we might have been in a little bit of trouble, because we didn't have a green mana floating for Memory's Journey. So maybe they assumed that we had an Elvish Spirit Guide in hand, but they could have just checked our graveyard, right? They could have checked our graveyard, worked out what do we have in hand. We don't have an Elvish Spirit Guide. Okay. The Memory's Journey is in the graveyard. We've got a black in our pool. Why would we put a black in our pool and especially keep it there? Probably Reanimate. Obviously, not that many people are overly familiar with this deck, but they could have made a better play there, right? They could have extracted the Narcomoebas so that we couldn't dread return the Thassa's Oracle. And because we didn't have the green mana up, we couldn't have countered that with a Memory's Journey. And we would have just lost our Narcomoebas. So I think whilst we did play around what our opponent had, if they would have been more familiar with how the deck operates, they probably would have played better. So they didn't take an optimal line. They could have beaten us. And that's, again, a weakness with the deck. But again, part of the strength of the deck is that some people don't quite know all the Memory's Journey, Graveyard, Reanimate lines. So you can get wins where, strictly speaking, if everyone's playing optimally, you don't win. However, I don't like playing decks where some of my outs are my opponent's playing badly. That's awkward. Like playing around concealed information, I like that, where your opponent plays around stuff that you might have. I enjoy those sorts of matchups. But this one, we're literally throwing it out there and saying, this is what we have. You should be able to solve that puzzle. And I love solving puzzles. That's why I play a lot of combo decks in Magic. However, our opponent could have solved that puzzle and just beaten us. So we probably should have only gone 3-2 in this league if our opponent played optimally in that round. So even though we managed to do some pretty cool stuff, I don't think this deck is where you want to be for a big tournament. Now, if you've just got a short amount of time, like I sometimes have when I record with this deck, then it's great. You can jam into a league, and it's pretty fun. I wouldn't want to play it all the time, but it's quite fun every now and then to say, yeah, I'm going to be the guy that says, can you do it, yes or no? I prefer a little bit more back and forth with my decks generally, but this is, you know, this is fun for a little once in a while experience. And if you play this enough times in leagues, you'll eventually win a league, because the power level when it goes right is so strong that eventually you're going to end up with 5 rounds of not getting near the floor of your deck and being more towards the ceiling of your deck, and that'll be enough to win. And there's some matchups where you just body them and they can't do very much. Now, sometimes you're going to get a bit mashed up by endurance and things like that from those decks, and you're not going to have the answer to it, and that's going to be a shame, and that's what happened to us. But we definitely could have had a Leyline of Sanctity turn 1 combo hand and won. So, you know, this deck can beat anything, but it can get beaten by every other deck. Every deck's got tools to defeat this. Some of them in far less frequency, though. But in a meta where there's a fair chunk of Force of Will floating around right now, just Force of Will checking people can be a bit of a scary way to win, especially if you lose game 1 in a match where your deck is supposed to be winning on turn 1 in those games. It can be a bit troublesome. The endurance has definitely been a bit of a bane in this deck's existence, because you have these sort of dirty green decks that normally you would just absolutely devour, but they have this tool that allows them to potentially just kill you on turn 1 if you've cast a Summoner's Pact. Alright, I think I've rambled on about this one enough. I hope you enjoyed this one. We sort of showcase a lot of different aspects of this deck and how even when things go wrong, you can still get there. So thank you very much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and check out the Patreon below. Goodbye.